Hello and welcome to the Final Stand Show. I'm your host, Matt Wallace. Make sure to subscribe with notifications on to stay updated on all of the biggest and most important things in the financial world, ranging from cryptocurrency to inflation to what's happening with the overall economy on the world scale. Are we going to have a major recession like we've never seen before? Or will the Sandman come and magically fix things? Which is something that I don't even know why the Sandman would do that, but in theory he would, and that's just the first thing that came to my mind, so I said it. And that's what I do sometimes on this show. It's just what happens. You probably know that already if you've been watching for a while, but if you're new, welcome. We have a few important things to talk about right now. The most important of which is, of course, the state of the market that we are in right now. Dogecoin at this current point is at the point in the market, and this happens over and over and over again, where it starts to lull some people to sleep. The average investor who's not going to be paying attention, the typical person who may just put a little bit of money in and then walk away, a lot of people are feeling the pressure, and they have been over the last few months, that cryptocurrency may not spike again. It could be over. That could have been the last run. And it's the most common feeling that we see during these points in the market. It's happened every single time. And everyone, each time it happens, thinks that this could be the time where it's actually real. This time crypto really is done. We missed the run, we missed the spike, or maybe we caught some of it, but we didn't catch all of it. Everyone wishes they had made this investment or that investment, or done this better or that better. But that's, I think, probably the most impactful part of it. Yes, it's true that a lot of people are kind of fearful and thinking that the market may not go up again, but there is still, in the back of everyone's mind who saw the first bull market, there's this thought of, I wish I had capitalized on this more. And that thought is one of the main things that always sparks the next bull run. That's one of the most important parts, because then when we start to see just a little bit of energy, people start to get that feeling again, what if this is the next big one? What if this is the next big run? And what if I miss out on those opportunities I wish I had taken part of last time? What if this time the same thing happens? Last time, maybe I can make the excuse, I didn't know about it. I had no clue that cryptocurrency could have done that. How was I supposed to know? But this time, what excuse can you make? And it'll be the same thing. Some people will make excuses, but the people who make a lot of money will be the ones who still continue to have confidence in the cycle, who still continue to have confidence in the mission of crypto. And that will be when we see the crazy spike, and the people who have been loyal and who have been paying attention the whole time will get extraordinarily wealthy as a result of it. And the people who got scared in this market will then start to FOMO in late, make some money from it potentially. Then when we do inevitably see another bear market again, which will happen hopefully a good bit of time away from now, a good bit of time after the next bull market, to put it more precisely, after we see that happening, then at that point, those same people are going to then watch the money go down and say, I really wish I had invested that time. I really wish I'd done this or that. But then that will happen again, and they'll miss it again. And so it's this endless cycle. You just have to say, I'm going to take the risk. You have to say, I believe in the fundamentals. I know the cryptocurrency market's going to spike again. I'm not going to be one of the people who just continues to sit the cycles out or getting at the wrong time because I'm hoping for this, I'm hoping for that. You just have to trust the process. And no matter how hard it gets, no matter what happens, continue trusting that process. Now, there's a very good example of that. By the way, this is the Dogecoin price right now. You can see it's leveled out quite a bit. This is the flattest we've ever seen the Dogecoin price since we started covering it, which is crazy. I mean, we started covering it when it was under half a penny. You can see all the way back here, these little tiny spikes, those were huge back in the day. I remember covering them live. It was a lot of fun to do that. And so now you can see though, look how flat it is compared to that. It's pretty insane, just the level of flatness that we've seen on the day chart level in comparison to the full view of the last couple of years or so. But here's another pretty encouraging example of this. So CZ Binance, a lot of people talked about him, and they continue to talk about him, and rightfully so. He's the richest person in cryptocurrency, worth approximately $17 billion based on multiple estimates, which is around $2 billion more than Sam Bankman-Fried, who is, based on multiple reports, the second richest person from cryptocurrency. So that's a lot of money going into it, right? He's certainly he's not gonna be having to worry about financial situation ever again, right? He's at that point where he's extremely comfortable, and he can basically do anything he wants financially on the world scale. He can go anywhere he wants, live anywhere he wants, have a full staff of people to cater to his every need. That's the ultimate luxury that everyone desires, and that is absolutely attainable through really these rare things that pop up like cryptocurrency. It is obtainable. It's hard, but it can happen. You can actually do the same thing. That's what's encouraging about it. Take a look at this. So CZ was born in a village in Shanghai. He migrated to Canada in 1980s when he was 12, and he studied computer science engineering. And one thing I've noticed, a lot of people who immigrate to the United States and who experienced what life was like in different places have extra motivation and extra work ethic because they see what it's like to live in a place where you don't have those opportunities. And then to come to a place where you do, it just provides extra motivation. And so I've noticed a lot of people who immigrate to the United States and end up being successful as a result of that. But I think it's important, even if you're not from a different country, like myself, I am from the United States, to try to harness that same energy to be successful. I think that's kind of the key, is to have an outside perspective, to understand how lucky we are to be in the position we are, to be in a country as free as we are in. And even if you're not in the United States, if you're in a different country, which is a decent percentage of our audience, still though, I mean, if you're watching this show, if you have access to it, if you're in an English-speaking country, there's a good chance that you're pretty blessed in terms of your opportunities that you can accomplish in the world. You probably don't live in China. You probably don't live in North Korea, obviously. It would be very unlikely for you to be watching this and live there. If you do, shout out to the one person who does. I mean, that's truly incredible. Maybe Kim Jong-un, if you're watching. How's it going, buddy? Hopefully you can be a little nicer to your people next year, but I mean, can we call them his people? I guess you can be nicer to the people in the country that you claim to rule over. I mean, I guess you do, but I just don't want to give him that. Whatever, I'm being dumb. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Let me just continue on with the story. I'll stop. I'll end it. So you can see this, BTC at average price of $600 per coin. That is when CZ started getting into it. So in 2014, he sold his house just to buy BTC. That's how confident he was in it. Now, everyone at that time who was in the crypto market was very, very, very skeptical when it started to go down some. And they started to get worried and scared, and people who really, arguably, could have gotten rich from it, probably would have, got scared and sold and thought it was done and thought it was over. And it's the same cycle that continues happening over and over and over again. And yet, the only people who learn are the people who continue staying focused and continue actually studying cryptocurrency and learning about it, even in the bear markets. But you can see he invested in 2014 by selling his house, taking a huge risk, and he bought at a price of $600 per coin. Soon, Bitcoin's price fell, crashed all the way to $200. Think about that. Imagine you sell your house. You're so confident in something. You sell the most precious thing to you, and CZ, he wasn't extraordinarily wealthy at that time. You know, like, that actually takes a good amount of risk. That takes a good amount of confidence. He did that. He took the risk, and this is before he had an exchange. He didn't even have an exchange started yet when he did that. And so it fell down in decent ways, and obviously you know the story from there. I mean, he just, off his investment alone, he did extraordinarily well. And now, of course, we know what happened next. He started Binance in July of 2017 at the peak of the initial coin offering era. And 5 years later, Binance is one of the leading global crypto exchanges in terms of daily trading volume. Some reports have it as the number one in the entire world. That's an inspirational story. Now, I will say there are some things that these people in these positions do that are arguably very questionable. And I think the reason for that is because the type of people who are capable of starting these computer businesses, oftentimes they don't really necessarily understand how to fit in with typical things. And I don't know, what's the best way to put this? Basically, they're very, very, very focused on those specific ventures because it's very difficult to grow a company of that size to the point where they don't really talk to people and necessarily understand what people are thinking or what people want. And so they kind of have a disconnect. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's okay to have disconnect if that makes you happy. I mean, if that's what you want to do. But the problem that can come from a disconnect is that if you have both a disconnect and a lot of power through owning one of these companies, then it can create this kind of imbalance where they're making decisions that may actually not be the best for the people, but they think they are because of that same disconnect that they've had the entire time. Now, if you're just a normal person, right, and you have a disconnect, who cares, right? Just enjoy your life, do whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with that. The only time I call it out is in cases like this, and I just would hope that they would start to kind of learn to connect more with what people want. And one example of that is Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried is someone who just recently released an article. By the way, there's his net worth, CZ Zhang, $17.4 billion. Sam Bankman-Fried, who's sitting at around $15 billion based on some reports here. Now, we don't know that for sure, but $15.3 billion is what we have Bloomberg estimating his net worth at. But you can see, and keep in mind that that's if they sold all their shares of their companies, that net worth would go down. So it's just on paper what their net worth is. It's not really technically that high, but still, if you're over 100 million, you don't really have to worry. Like, you're extraordinarily wealthy at that point, right? So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But crypto exchange FTX to provide $6 million in phishing compensation, but he's been getting a lot of hate for this. And part of the reason why is because of how he chooses to implement this compensation. So, for example, if there's a hack on FTX, well, he doesn't seem to take too much responsibility for that, but he takes responsibility for this. And so you start to see this is where the disconnect can play a role. So where is he going to attribute his resources to? And a lot of people calling him out for this in the comment section under his tweet. So basically he tweeted out about this, and he basically said, this is a one-time thing. Well, if you think it's important to do it, why is it just a one-time thing? Are you just trying to set legal precedent? It's kind of hard to tell because of the disconnect that I've been trying to mention. But anyway, he was talking about phishing's bad. Basically, some people who he has no responsibility for were running a phishing scheme where they pretended to be FTX, and now he's taking responsibility for that, which arguably shouldn't be his responsibility, but maybe this is a nice thing to do, right? Maybe this is a good thing. Sure, you can say that. But then again, I mean, he's worth 15 billion, and he's choosing to spend 6 million on this. He could also, if he thinks that's the good thing to do, spend similar money in other areas to compensate people for things like hacks on FTX and things like that. Or other areas where people could potentially be compensated or just helped overall. And so there's kind of this weird position. And there's also some truth to the fact there's no being perfect, right? You can't say, okay, Sam Bankman-Fried, do this exact thing and then it's perfect, everyone will love you. But there are a couple things he could do. Like, let me go ahead and give you some examples here. So here's some of the tweets underneath. So, you suck, just go away. You suck. You're a bad dude and bad things happen to bad people. Yeah, like phishing through BitBoy's bill and picking out what you want to manipulate for your control. So some people are arguing he's trying to control crypto through his bill that wants to put limitations and put more government control within crypto, potentially censorship, a ban list that could be implemented by powerful people, which could then be used to censor, which is kind of defeating the whole purpose of crypto, right? So some of these disconnects actually could have negative implications on a wide scale because of the amount of power that Sam Bankman-Fried has. So we can say when he does things like spend money to actually help bring cryptocurrency forward or to bail out some of these firms, yeah, it's a positive thing, but we can also criticize at the same time that he shouldn't be trying to push for more censorship or more top-down control from cryptocurrency. And by the way, also, I did want to mention real quick, so you may be wondering, why is there a different background? So right now, I'm actually at my grandparents' house. My grandmother's memorial service was yesterday. She passed around a week ago. And so I do want to say RIP, Grandma. I definitely miss her already. It was a very emotional service, and I was glad to be a part of it. I'm going to be back home soon, and I'm helping my family deal with this and helping to figure out kind of what the next steps are. My granddad is still here with us, and so he's going to be moving. Actually, he's going to be moving in with my parents, who live a good ways away from me at the current moment. But still, I'm going to be visiting them soon and supporting them in whatever way I can. So I just want to go ahead and mention that real quick. And I mean, it's a cycle of life. It is what happens, but it's still sad when it does. And it would be nice if people could just live forever. I mean, seriously, it would. Like, just imagine that. Like, that would be a world, I think. I mean, I guess there will be complications that'll come from it, but I mean, still, just theoretically, the idea of not having to say goodbye to people you love would be pretty dang cool. And I guess you could argue, I mean, if you're a believer in God, which I personally do believe in God, I guess we don't really have to say goodbye forever. We will eventually see them again in heaven. And so if you believe that is comforting, I do personally believe that. So I guess there is that way to look at it as well, even though it's kind of hard to see that full picture when you're just sitting here on Earth and you're in kind of a vacuum. It's kind of hard to see beyond where you are and to think beyond that. But then over and over and over again, I guess it's important to reassure yourself of things like that and to keep faith, because if you don't, then you're going to potentially be in a position where you're much less happy in life. Having that reassurance, okay, we go to heaven, that makes me feel better. And there's no way to know for sure all the details about heaven or anything like that, but I do believe that there's a God that created this earth, and I do believe that we do go to heaven afterwards, and all the details in between, I mean, are definitely subject to controversy. It's hard to know for sure which specific details here, which specific details there are correct and aren't correct, and I think that's just an important thing to keep in mind, is that no one will ever agree fully with each other on religion or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I think most of us can agree, I did a poll, most of us can agree that God does exist and that we do go somewhere after we die. And hopefully that's a beautiful place where we can all be happy and just, I guess, experience something we've never experienced before. Now, that's kind of a strange tangent. I don't normally go on tangents like that, but in light of what just happened, I think it's kind of a good time to talk about it. And I know everyone has or is going to lose someone, and so if you did, or if you are going to, hopefully those words I just said may provide some guidance or comfort. If not, then, it is what it is. I'm a cryptocurrency YouTuber. You can't expect that from me. But I tried at least. I gave my 2 cents. I gave my opinion on it, and I hopefully you have some insight into how my brain works on things like that, if you even care or not. But if you do, then there we go. Now you have it. If not, then oh well, whatever. I also thought this was interesting. So Florida right now is somehow outperforming the U.S. economy, and so I'm trying to figure out what did they do precisely that created such a big difference. So GDP up 1.6%, labor force up plus 3%, private sector jobs up plus 5%, and you compare that up significantly in comparison to the United States as a whole. So I'm wondering, is this just because people are going there because they like the overall environment of the state? Is this a tax-based thing? Is this an indication that perhaps different tax rates could lead to a different economic set of standards? Is it just a coincidence? Maybe there's absolutely nothing to it. So I'm trying to figure out all these things, and I'm going to potentially be making an episode on this soon and dive in more detail of it. There's also a couple other states that have been outperforming the US economy. Some of them have been way underperforming it as well. And so I think we can learn from that and try to figure out a better plan without being, too, we don't want to be political about it, right? We just want to simply say which plans work and which plans don't work. And then whether you're for one side or the other, you should push your politician to accept those things. I think that's where we can arguably make a change. We can't change the system. We can't fix everything at one time, but we can convince and try to at least push politicians in the right direction, regardless of what their overall belief system is, on specific things that are important, like the economy, which I think is the most important issue that the federal government has control over. Some people disagree, but at the end of the day, that's going to be the issue that has the most long-term impacts. That's the issue that affects every other issue so deeply. And so if we can get a hold of the economy and have it be stronger than ever, then that's going to lead to a point where so many of the other things can be implemented that help people. Like, for example, if you want to have programs in place that help people who need a hand up, who are in a bad position financially, maybe they don't deserve it. Maybe they actually would benefit massively and be able to turn their lives around if they had some sort of financial assistance. Well, if you had an economy that was running extremely powerfully and had an extremely good track record, and you had the entire world who was wanting to put money into the dollar because of its strength, then at that point you could potentially implement those programs within the United States and also benefit the world by innovation and creating new things. So it could bring the whole world up. And it's already happening. There's already a decent amount of innovation. So hopefully we'll see that continue to move forward at a faster rate, and we can actually see a better world that's created as a result of it, because that's very hard to do, and we seem to be in somewhat of a stalemate. We continue to be for a while because a lot of older people are very set in their ways. You can try to talk to older people about relative different issues, and I think there's a pretty big difference between older people that just want to be set in their ways and never look at new information, and older people who actually come on places like YouTube and try to get information. Like, that's a completely different sector of people. So I think that's an important distinction to make. But the older people who don't really try to seek out information and who aren't really participating in social media or on YouTube or watching videos on cryptocurrency or anything like that, people like that seem to be extremely set in their ways. And if you talk to relatives or anyone like that and you try to convince them of something, you're going to have a very hard time doing so, because it's now an emotional attachment to their positions that they have. And whether that's cryptocurrency or not, it's hard to beat it. Like, for example, if you talk to an older person about Bitcoin and Dogecoin, and you try to convince them, well, Dogecoin actually has a much better chance to make you significantly rich than Bitcoin does, especially at this current point in time. Dogecoin actually is a more viable option as a currency of Earth than Bitcoin is, and then multiple other cryptocurrencies at the top are. If you try to convince them of that, even if you make good points, they don't really care because they have an emotional attachment to the situation. And as many facts as you try to provide, it won't ever matter. And so we want to be arguably promoting an environment where there's more and more people that actually do come at issues and do come at things from the perspective of, let me learn the facts first and then form my opinion. I'm not going to have an emotional attachment to it. I'm just going to pick what works. I hope that's something that's continuing to happen more. It seems like a lot of younger people I talk to seem to have that train of thought and seem to be more on the bandwidth of that area where they actually are not going to allow other people's thoughts to really form their ideas. But we may be a ways off from people like that having actual positions of power. So, I mean, it's just hope. I like to have hope. I like to be optimistic. And that's one area where I can be optimistic, that as the new generation comes and understands cryptocurrency, understands how to run economic factors at a slightly higher level and isn't as influenced by issues that may be considered more social, then that could lead to a better economic situation overall, and it could lead to less government control over those specific issues. So, I mean, without getting into too much detail, that's kind of, I mean, I think I've gone on a lot of tangents on this show. I've had a lot of fun with that. And so we'll see. Will the tangents pay off? Will this be an entertaining show? Who knows? If it is, you're welcome to go down there and press that like button. If it's not, then you're welcome to go and slap me. Extremely, extremely, extremely softly. Please don't do it hard. If you ever see me in person, you can just a little boop, and no inappropriate areas. Just on the face, just boop. If you see me in person and you thought this was a bad show, you're welcome to do that lightly. Please don't do it hard. I mean, that would be, that would be illegal. So don't do that. I mean, would I press charges? Look, if you've been a fan of the show for a long time, I probably wouldn't. But if it was too hard, I mean, I may have to. So just watch out. Be careful there. Another tangent. See, I went on a tangent about tangents. That's like a triple tangent. That's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many tangents on tangents are even possible, but I imagine it's quite a few tangents on tangents on tangents. Maybe Sam Bankman-Fried can bail me out for that. Who knows? Maybe he'll throw me $6 million like he did to those individuals who fell for the phishing scheme. And it does. One other thing I thought was weird about this. So Sam Bankman-Fried seemed to be indicating that the people who fell for the phishing scheme was only like a few people, because he showed some wallet addresses under his tweet. And basically, in those wallet addresses, there's only 3 of them. And so is he saying 3 people lost $6 million collectively from this phishing? Is it someone he knows? Is that why he's doing this? I mean, it's very confusing. So I hope some clarity comes on it. But anyway, until that happens, Dogecoin to the moon. I'm Matt Wallace. This is Final Stand, and I'll see you in the next video.